where we have a website where we've been developing, and also an Android application which literally was coming together till very, very early hours of this morning. I've got a very different perspective on digital currencies because I first became interested in them in about 2005, 2006, when we dreamed up the idea of inventing our own. But at that time, it was pre-Bitcoin, and I was doing a master's degree at University of Adelaide, and what I was interested in was digital currencies and working out how what a theoretical digital currency could do. And we had a lot of different ideas about could it transfer $10,000 around the world? And a partner and I went to run our ideas after we'd developed them, past a whole lot of lecturers, PhDs at Adelaide University, and they said to us, you know, everything can be hacked. But and that was a sort of word of warning to us to say, look, don't think you can't be hacked, because one day everyone will be hacked. But the little token that I took out of that meeting was at the end of that meeting, one of the PhD lecturers there said to me, well, by the way, Simon, if you are going to do something with digital currencies, if you can deal in microtransactions of digital currencies and you can isolate them as transactions, it's not worth hacking 5 cents. And that stuck in my mind. And so immediately I ruled out all of the larger transactions and focused on what applications and real-world problems could be solved by dealing in microtransactions. Now, at that time I was doing a commercialization degree, and one of the things we learn in commercialization degree is that in a project you have to face this crunch point where you say, is the project a go or a no-go? And it's a go if all the ducks line up in a row, if you can get every piece right, if your intellectual property is right, if you've got good technology, good people, good team. You know, I think most of you in the startup sphere know this kind of, all the check boxes. But one of the things that occurred to me at the time was if we could get the digital currencies working with in a model with microtransactions, and that would be a really important thing. But at that time, there was no Bitcoin, and our digital currency was a theoretical digital currency. Actually, it shared quite a few common characteristics in that multiple peers would verify transactions, which is something that happened in Bitcoin later on, which is interesting. But let me just summarize. What we decided to do at that time was to look into making what we called an independent digital music market. And the real problem that I wanted to solve, this is 2005, 2006, so I was observing since 1999, 2000 and onwards through that decade what happened from Napster, post-Napster, as all of the variants of Napster came along, the different kinds of peer-to-peer technologies, LimeWire, Nutella protocol, etc., eventually moving towards BitTorrent as record companies and movie industry tried to shut down peer-to-peer file sharing networks. Eventually, BitTorrent made it very, very difficult for them to shut it down. But what I realized is that, and this is of course around the time Skype came about, and so that was a very interesting point in time, because one had to suddenly realize that, you know, if you get the peer-to-peer model right and it's legal, no one can stop it. And so peer-to-peer for me, as I started to really analyze it, is the natural content sharing technology of the internet. Client-server system is a very bad way to share content. Okay, so basically we dreamed up this idea of an independent digital music market, which would, as I thought more about it, it would have to exclude all record company music. It would have to be about independent music. It would have to have a certain prerequisites about it that made it unsuable, unstoppable. And also my background, I guess I should fill you in, is I've been a musician all my life. And back in the 1980s, I remember very clearly what it was like trying to write songs and distribute, get record company interest, etc. It's extremely difficult. And over the decades, I've watched that get easier and easier and easier. But my destiny was not in music as purely because I've been in musician for a while, a filmmaker for 10 years, went into marketing, went into lasers and holography for about 8 years, then went into advertising, ended up in running Ogilvy's interactive division in Shanghai. And then I came back to Australia to do this master's degree. When I came back, I wanted to do this degree because I wanted to find out what would be the ideal business. Had to be an internet business, had to have a multiplier, etc. Okay, so fast forward, since 2005, 2006, I've had this idea of an independent digital music market. But at that time, it was a no-go in terms of a commercialization project because there was no digital currency to support it. So, my company's been doing other things. We've been working on device-based recommendation systems, which are very, very interesting technologies in terms of peer-to-peer sharing that just shares internet tags, web tags, to make a device-based, you could call it the people's Google. It's a search system that runs on people's devices because it's inevitable that we all have more and more powerful devices in our pockets. That led us to thinking about new forms of permission-based advertising. And we're working down that track and working on our patents for our device-based search systems and recommendation systems. Heavily involved in that and watching Bitcoin. But I've never been interested really in the speculation of Bitcoin or Bitcoin as a way to make a lot of money. Because for me, you know, my company's about making difficult things happen, trying to find really difficult problems and solve things that are worth solving. So what happened is that when, of course, in April, when everyone got excited about Bitcoin, it wasn't so much the value of Bitcoin jumping that excited me. It was the fact that, I don't know whether many of you know about this term, crossing the chasm, that Jeffrey Morin coined, of people sharing music that is not record company music, that is independent music. And every time a transaction happens, instantly, the artist gets rewarded fairly. The people who are sharing the music to each other get rewarded instantly. And we, as a company, have a system where if this music is on our website and on top 100, we will take 20%. And the transactions would be $1 per song. If the songs are not on the top 100 and not on our website, they're 50 cents per song, we take nothing. 25%, 50% of the royalty will go to the artist and 50% will go to the people who are exchanging that file. I don't want to take anything out of that is not on our top 100s because that's the long tail of music. And if you think about the way these systems work, you know, it's all about flattening the value chain, and you can't get flatter than the artist and the fans. So that's the principle upon which BitTunes was founded, is that we suddenly, what was a no-go in 2006, come 2013 is now a go, meaning it can happen. So that's kind of all I really wanted to say, because all those who sort of understand what we're doing maybe want to come and talk to us, because we have a very long-term view of this. We're not interested in handling and holding of Bitcoin as a company. We're interested in the distribution of value to end users. So recently we've built a bulk microtransaction payment server, which using Bitcoin J protocol and various other technologies distributes to end users. So it's taking on David and Goliath kind of battle, but that's been my fascination for years. Disruptive technologies. How do you develop a disruptive theory? How do you take on the elephant in the marketplace and tip it upside down? You have to be patient. But we think the forces have aligned up to enable that to happen. Okay, cheers. Thanks.
Do we have some questions from the audience?
Yeah, any questions?
1 second.
Hi, Steve from GoCoin.
Hi.
I was wondering, are you a full paywall, or is it just simply embedded into your system? Are you providing paywall for other platforms or just for your own?
No, we're nothing like a paywall. We basically are a protocol sitting on top of Bitcoin. We use Bitcoin and we embed it on a layer. We make a BitTunes protocol on top of Bitcoin. And we basically we try and step out of the way and let independent musicians, artists, freely trade what they do around the world. And if you actually think about what would happen if that was the case, and it sounds very kind of left-wing and libertarian, but it would necessarily involve a massive redistribution of wealth from rich countries to poor countries. And that sounds very kind of airy-fairy, but really it's quite interesting because in the world music industry, for instance, you've got great music being created by little pockets of people on islands or in little countries that have very different economies to, say, the US or the EU. So what would happen if one of those little bands in a little country makes a song that is really fantastic and everyone likes it, and people in the US start paying $1 for that song? This makes a huge difference in that country or to those people. So I think the one way to understand it is we denominate all transactions in US dollars to make it really, really simple. So when you're dealing with BitTunes, you just see a song is either 50 cents if it's on the open network, or $1 if it's on one of our top 100s. If it's on the open network, we take nothing. If it's on the top 100, we take 20%. Artist gets 40%. The users who share it to each other get 40%. And we get out of the way. You have a question?
Question? Yeah. What if people are just trying to make money out of the platform instead of just uploading independent music? They'll just go and upload top 20 on major labels. How would you enforce restrictions?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, but basically, if you go back and analyze what happened with peer-to-peer file sharing networks, the biggest problem was that they were unregulated. Now, regulation, no one really likes regulation, but when you have lack of regulation in an open file sharing network where, you can share really interesting music, but you can also, it gets used for sharing pirated software, child pornography, blah, blah, blah. If you go onto one of those file sharing networks and you want to see a picture of somebody getting killed or a movie of somebody getting killed, you'll find it. So, lack of regulation on peer-to-peer networks is a real problem. So, to answer your question, really, no, what we do is we actually tightly control what goes onto the network. We have to. So we take great care in making sure that the music is really independent and that the people who people who want to put the music onto the network, they do own the copyright of that music. We use a variant of the Creative Commons license, and in Creative Commons is a great system basically because there's a little caveat in there that says, although it's generally used for not commercializing work, there's a little caveat that says if the person who created the work would like the work to be traded, they can say, yes, I'd like my work to be traded. So we just simply use that as our licensing system. Best way to think of it is really, what I like to say is that peer-to-peer is an edge technology. Client-server is a core technology. So peer-to-peer systems push distribution to the edge. Creative Commons, when it's used correctly in this situation, puts licensing and rights to the edge of the network. And then along comes Bitcoin, and Bitcoin puts currency exchange and trading on the edges of the network. So you've got three factors that line up at the edges of the network, and that then potentially makes it fly. But it won't happen overnight. There'll be a lot of resistance. But if you get it right, and you do make sure that what's on the network is tightly controlled, inside those parameters of control, then you have the freedom of being able to operate and like Skype, carve a swathe through the telecommunications industry and actually do something meaningful. Anyway.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay,
Thank you very
thanks
much.
a lot.